Hey everyone, Stephanie here with a replay from the second round of Pirate101 Central's double elimination 1v1 summer tournament. If you recall from my previous video, I lost my first set to Alex Deathflame, so this set was against someone else who also lost their first set, Clever Leo Teach playing Witchdoctor in this video. You can see that he went for a very unconventional build for a witch, which was a hyper aggressive chain build with Overwatch readied spell, Coward's Bane, Parting Shot as triggers, and then Mojo Rising, Mojo Echo, Burst Fire, and Double Tap as the chains. And he also went for stat accessories such as the necklace from the brass monkey, hat that is also stat based rather than giving cards. And I thought I would try and do post-game commentary for these videos because it actually taps into a pretty interesting PvP discussion as to whether stats or cards are better for gear choices. So you can see I lost the first game because I wasn't prepared for this strategy. Like I said, it's very unusual for witches to play like this. You can look at some of the other videos I made of my games with Faithful Nora Loomis and Stormy Quentin Verger as examples of how witches typically play. But so basically I realized that even though he has very few cards with the setup, like he only has one fort and one Kraken's Lament and basically no revives, but you actually can't play the game of like timing out resources because he plays very quickly. So the idea is that once he runs out of steam, then the hyper aggressive chains will no longer work that well because he will be out of defenses, whereas you will still have forts and revives and stuff. So what I was doing here was I was just opening with some big guns, and he was advancing a little bit and setting up buffs. But I will put a link in the video description below to some resources discussing stats versus powers. It's definitely a debate worth revisiting because KingsIsle has been adding new PvP gear that seems more focused on stats than powers or cards. But I'm of the opinion, like many other people who spend a lot of time doing PvP, that it's better to encourage a meta where people play with cards more than relying on their stats or their passive abilities, because it just makes for a more interactive playing experience. Like, you're not relying so much on luck, but more on positioning and card choices. So here he's setting up buffs for his entire team, and you can see that my guru only has one charging ability, which is the Vicious Charge, with a range of 8 squares. So I needed to time it very carefully to make sure that I didn't waste it. And because all of his team has so many buffs set up, I was being very careful to put on forts on my companions before sending them in. And here you can see an example of the chain build going off. So like my pet had you know, full health going in and it just got chained to death. Just like that, so. Alright, so he is putting on a shield, reducing incoming damage by 25%. And here I'm just putting a fort on Goronado. And I retreated Goro a little bit because I didn't want him to be one-shot by Nausicaa, which he was in danger of being one-shot, because Nausicaa has an infinite charging range actually. If you use the long charge, 14 squares, not exactly infinite, but if it's the supercharge and it's 7 squares, so that's why I moved Goro back a little bit. And Leo is playing aggressively here because he does basically only have one set of buffs, so like because he already put on all those buffs, that's why he's advancing. And he placed Toro in that position within range of my Contessa, and also the Toro does not have First Strike 3, so I decided to punish that placement by sending my Contessa's hidden backstab after the Toro, and then using Nausicaa's long charge to back that up to make sure Toro dies, and then getting in the rest of the damage on Nausicaa. So the reason I was trying to take out Toro first was, first of all, because the positioning allowed for that play, and second, because Toro has an Esprit, so I wanted to make sure that Leo didn't get any value out of the Toro. And here, my Nausicaa was exchanging shots with his Nausicaa. So the Toro is successfully eliminated, and his pirate has Kraken's Lament and Valor's Shield. Yeah, someone is saying, good lord, his accuracy, because it's very unusual for people to invest in that much stats for their pirate. I actually can see his build working super well in really challenging dungeons in PvE situations. That's probably where he learned to play like this. Okay, so I decided to heal my team, use Goro's AoE, and then use Nausicaa's guaranteed super on Contessa. Now it looks like I'm winning by a large margin, but as you will see, because of the way he built his pirate, this match actually ends up being quite close. So I'm just topping up my team's health again from a distance, and here I decided to continue attacking because first of all, his pirate has Coward's Bane and Parting Shot, and second, because of the way that he positioned his pirate, it means that the Overwatch and Ready spell won't go off, so my companions don't have to worry about approaching his pirate, like because he's already within range. Normally, Overwatch or Ready spell goes off when you move from 3 squares in front of their pirate into 2 squares in front of their pirate. That's when it goes off. So now it's revealed why he moved up is because he had that AoE drain spell that he wanted to use on all of my companions. And you can see I was mousing over them because I was just checking like how many rounds of the protection they still had on. Now I think another, I don't know if you want to call it a misplay, but my pirate is very, very fragile, as you saw in the first clip. Can be easily chained to death. So like because he was spending all of his chains on my companions instead of just coming after my pirate, I was able to kind of sit comfortably at a distance and just keep on healing them. But yeah, you can see that even with all the protections they have on, he's getting these insane amounts of damage. And I think he manages to eliminate one of my companions here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so he kills Contessa and reduces Nausicaa's health to below half, even though Nausicaa does have a shield on. And she gets some counter attacks on him because she's also a musketeer, and his hybrid build is half musket, half witch. But yeah, here I was thinking about how to retreat safely, because if we can survive and time out his Valor's Fortress and Kraken's Lament and Valor's Shield, then we basically win. But if, you know, if we continue trying to exchange damage, then my companions would just die. So here the Coward's Bane goes off because I was retreating Nausicaa and the parting shot. And I do manage to retreat her within range to use a revive. I decided not to retreat Goro because Goro didn't have any shields on, so he would easily just die to like a parting shot. So here Leo wasn't in range to hit normally, so he used a special card, which was Mornsong, and killed my Nausicaa. But it does mean that he no longer has the Mornsong. And you can see I was deleting some cards that I didn't think I would need because I wanted to make sure I could draw more protections for Goro, so I put on a Valor's Fortress and had Goro continue to pressure. And here one of Leo's protections wore off, so he only has the Valor's Shield left. And I think at this point he realized that you know, my pirate was completely unprotected, so he teleported within range using the witch ability Shadow Step. And because he is 1 square away, I could choose either to attack, because I don't have to move from the 3rd square into the 2nd square, so I'm safe from Overwatch and Ready Spell. However, I also don't have any protections on, so like I could be chained to death quite easily. So you can see I was hesitating whether to run away or not. I decided in the end to just go for the hit, which exposed my pirate the next turn to a ton of damage. But it would have been the same if I tried to run, because the parting shot and Coward's Bane would have gone off. So here he's just getting in the chain damage, and I moved Goro within range to soak up some of the damage so that my pirate wouldn't die. Yeah, you can see Goro was at almost max health, and like all of the chains is gonna reduce him to below half. Here my Witch Hunter went off because one of the Mojo Risings went off on my pirate. And because my health dropped below half, my Soul Shot went off and triggered his Witch Hunter. Okay, so my pirate just barely survives this exchange, but Leo is also almost dead. So you can see I moused over him and saw that there's the Assassin Strike with the bleed damage, and just needed a little bit more of a push to get through the Valor's Shield, so I also had Goro approach. And because my team went 2nd, so most of the chains were already used up, which is why I had Goro approach. So that was the end of the 2nd match. Also extremely close. Took some calculated risks at the end there. And I decided to bring the same team because it seemed to work well, and you can see that he chose to switch up his team. So instead of bringing Toro and Contessa, he brought Scratch and Kenpo and Nausicaa. The advantage of Scratch is that he can boost spell power under Central rules. Witches are allowed to use the 25% and the 50% mojo buffs. Now, Kenpo is an interesting choice. I probably wouldn't recommend it for Spar Chamber PvP because Kenpo's movement range is very short compared to Contessa's. I believe it's like 4 squares, whereas Contessa's is 6. Or 5 squares. And also Kenpo's hide is shorter as well, as only 3 rounds, whereas Contessa's is 5 rounds. But yeah, you can see that here I was clicking on his name because he cast a big guns. So he did actually change the hat and the boots to items that gave cards, like an absorb and big guns, instead of just the pure stats he was running in the previous game. But the rest of his gear, you can still see he was still wearing the monkey's necklace with the stats. So like, he seems to be figuring out as well whether it's better to use stats or cards. Anyway, so I was counting there the squares to make sure that my team was just out of range of his Nausicaa's guaranteed critical charges, which was 7 squares, as I've said. And here Leo put on the Valor's armor from his hat, which he didn't have before because he was using a stats hat. And he's pushing his team up, which I think is a mistake, because if he kept his team, like, depending on how he positions, he can actually make sure that any of my units that try to approach to hit his team will get punished by the Overwatch and Ready spell. But because like his pirate was just at the back there behind that pillar, my team was safe from the Overwatch. But it wasn't safe for my team to charge in just yet because I didn't have enough buffs set up. So here I set up Contessa's hide and I put on a fort on Goronado. And Leo is continuing to buff. So people who spend a lot of time doing PvP will tell you that the way Leo plays, like putting on buffs so quickly and, you know, charging so quickly, is not actually the best set of moves to make, because generally you want to try to optimize positioning first. And here he placed Kenpo within Contessa's range again, like similar to how he placed Toro within Contessa's range last time. And also that Kenpo does not have first strike 3, so cannot disarm hidden attacks. So I punished that in the same way. And because my Goro had a shield on and the Nausicaa was within the charging range of 8 squares, I decided to use the Vicious Charge and then send Nausicaa to back up. So here Kenpo survived Contessa's attack, and also my Nausicaa didn't get any double taps or anything. So Leo did the right choice here, which was to use Kenpo's hide, and then he moved his pirate up. And that's good placement of the Nausicaa on his part. It makes sure that if she gets any double tap chains, that they would go on Contessa instead of like on Goro. So here I tried to go for critical guns, which would kill Kenpo. If it went critical, would also have a decent chance of killing Nausicaa. And then I thought about I weighed the pros and cons of retreating and decided to just retreat because his pirate has too many buffs up. So if they stand there and continue trying to exchange shots, then they would just die. Here, like the Coward's Bane and Parting Shot goes off, but I was still able to retreat without losing any companions. And you can see that I did not get lucky with the guns, so both his Nausicaa and his Kenpo survived by a little bit. And Kenpo just took some bleed damage there from Contessa's backstab. Okay, so Leo is continuing to push forward to make use of the rounds of his buffs, and then he gets some final value out of his Nausicaa by using her mega hit. Thankfully my Contessa survived, so I had her just finish off the Nausicaa, and then I used Goro's AoE hit to get rid of Kenpo. So that was another placement mistake on Leo's part, putting Kenpo within range of the AoE. Like, Kenpo could have gotten value out of the hidden plus super combo if he was out of range of the AoE. And here Leo used one of his guaranteed supers. I was just checking to see how many supers he had. So one from the rain, one from the bauble. Yeah, so 2 guaranteed supers. In the second game, I believe he had 3 supers. But he decided to switch the boots to the big guns boots for this game. So anyway, he's getting a full chain of the super and got a ton of damage on my companions. Nausicaa's getting some counter hits on him. And he used Scratch's Jobu. Okay, so here I took advantage of the fact that my companions were alive, and also that he only had Valor's armor on, and also that Nausicaa doesn't have to worry about charging into Overwatch because she's already close enough to him. So I used my focus fire and then used Nausicaa's guaranteed super. So it was pretty much game over at this point because the pirate was gone and Kenpo was gone, so he couldn't heal back. But yeah, those were some pretty close matches. So I guess you guys can just judge for yourself if a stats-based setup is worth investing in. I don't think it is, just because it's very linear and it doesn't offer any backup options, but yeah. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, feel free to comment, and I will see you in the next video.